What's up, you guys? It's the Royal One, and we're gonna be looking at some new Tekken 8 content. I missed a couple trailers, Jun and Ling, and then we're gonna look at some Tekken 8 gameplay, which is crazy that they released gameplay. But let's watch these trailers first. I literally never got to use this character, so this stage also looks familiar, but I'm not 100% sure.
争いはなぜなくならないのでしょう。
Get ready for the next battle! Tekken 8! New challenger!
お見せします。
Jun Kazama! Masaka, 生きていたのか。
和也さん。 もろもろのままことつい汚れ清めましょう。あなたの孤独に私は寄り添いたい。
That's my new main in Tekken, honestly. Now for the Ling Xiaoyou. Let's see what they do with her.
Get ready for the next battle! Tekken 8! New challenger! Ling Xiaoyou!
迷わないって決めたから。ただじゃ済まないわよ。
still probably gonna use Ling. Now, honestly, I'm just waiting for Steve. I need a Steve. All right, let's watch this interview with Harada-san.
茶番は終わりだ。
What's up, everyone? Mitchell Saltzman here, and I am joined by the one and only Katsuhiro Harada and the likewise one and only Michael Murray. And we're, of course, here to talk about Tekken 8. So one of the things that you guys are adding to Tekken 8 that's completely brand new is this heat system.
Look at that.
Can you tell me a little bit about what the design goal of the heat system was and how it manifests in the game?
そうですね。
It kind of this is his hands first. That it ties into the overall design philosophy first, which I think we touched on, is aggressive, right? Because fighting games are unique in that other genres don't have this, but you can guard and have like 0 damage if you're that good at guarding, right? So in order to kind of get around that, it's more about we wanted to kind of entice people to explore the new game system and to be more aggressive in attacking. And the heat system was kind of designed to be one of the strong points of that, and to be so interesting that people want to explore different options and creative ways to use the characters to kind of employ those tactics.
So I got to see a keynote of what your goals were with Tekken 8, and you said one of them.
And to be so interesting that people want to explore different options and creative ways to use the characters to kind of employ those tactics.
So I got to see a keynote of what your goals were with Tekken 8, and you said one of them was to enhance like the character specialties in the game. Can you talk a little bit about what that means and how the heat system kind of plays into that?
まあヒートシステムっていうキーワードで、新システムですっていうパッケージとして。
Yeah, it's quite a focal point for us for making each character more unique as a result of the heat system. So the heat system it's a nice package and a nice ring to it by itself, and it affects the whole game just from as a system standpoint. But what's cool is that how each of these individual characteristics is different. The heat system. So the heat system it's a nice package and a nice ring to it by itself, and it affects the whole game just from as a system standpoint. But what's cool is that how each of these individual characteristics is different. Depending on the character and the heat state.
I know I'm talking over this dude, but I like that they got a little line right at the rage part. I like that. That's a small like detail that
for example, even King is a character that, although he has his moveset and some new moves added, when he goes into the heat state, he has access to something like the Jaguar Sprint, where he's got the super armor attributes as he's dashing towards the opponent. Though all the other characters have it, no, that's specific to him and makes him unique. But what that does is it kind of he has access to something like the Jaguar Sprint, where he's got the super armor attributes as he's dashing towards the opponent.
He has armor?
Though all the other characters have it, no, that's specific to him and makes him unique. But what that does is it kind of fosters that players will have their main character, but then they learn what makes them even cooler this time for Tekken 8. At the same time, they see another character and they think, oh wow, if the heat state makes them be able to do this kind of cool thing, maybe I'll pick them up and try them out. Harada himself even said he wants to maybe switch main characters or pick up someone else. He gave the King example. Myself, I'm a Mishima player, and if you look at Kazuya, he's been showing the trailer. One of the things for the Mishimas that's so satisfying is when you're able to hit the electric, right? The electric Wind God Fist, but it's so difficult input for people who aren't really good at the game yet. But in heat state, he has a much easier way to do electrics, and so you can find out why he's such a fun character. So those are just 2 examples, and imagine that across the whole cast.
So reflecting back on Tekken 7, I wonder, was there anything that you looked at when you were thinking about Tekken 8 that you wished, oh, I wish we did this in Tekken 7? Like, were there any areas in Tekken 7 that you thought you could do better at that you're now trying to do in Tekken 8?
面白い質問。今までないね。
なかなか面白い質問ですね。
There's lots of ideas. That's a very interesting question, first off, that we haven't really been asked. But there's many ideas of the opposite, where during Tekken, for example, 5, he gave the example that maybe the super slow was something that we did in 7, but he originally was the opposite, where during Tekken, for example, 5, he gave the example that
so
maybe the super slow was something that we did in 7, but he originally wanted to do it in 5. But it's very hard to take an idea that you couldn't do at the time because of not enough time or money or tech or whatever, and do it later, because often when you go to the next installment, you have
like
a different fan base, or the times have changed that they want something else, and you have to you're not able to use those ideas that are stocked. So it's very difficult in that sense. And this time for Tekken 8, it's more like it has to be better in every aspect than 7, that we have to put
like
every idea that we can that's brand new, rather than something that was in 7 per se.
Which I like.
Was what he was saying. For me personally, I kind of get what you're saying, and like one example is Tekken 5. The characters, depending on who the pairing is, they have a certain line they speak, and an action, and it changes depending on who they were talking to. And that was something that the fans really loved, and we just weren't able to do in 7. But this time, we put a lot of effort into doing that. And like Harada was saying, I really wanted to make the characters more unique, because they have rage or rage drive or systems across the board. So this time it was great to actually make them more unique with the heat capabilities and such. I wish we could have done more of that earlier, but this time it's something special. So.
I actually noticed that while I was playing. I think Lars and Jin have like a little fist bump intro. How many do you have a lot of those kind of interactions in Tekken 8, or is it just a select few?
Yeah, we have quite a few. You might have seen some today. I think of the characters that you did see. For example, Jun also comes into it, so when she faces Kaguya, they have a different interaction. Some kind of things you might, story-wise, think, hey, maybe these people have something, then most often they do.
Cool. Another one of the big additions that you guys are adding to Tekken 8 is this special control scheme. Can you talk a little bit about the impetus of that control scheme and what you're trying to accomplish with it?
It's geared just towards beginners and newcomers. And it's also something you have to set up in the menu, and then you're locked in through the whole match, right? So when we were thinking about this and how we wanted to change it, it was more about, well, it's kind of like a missed opportunity if it's just geared towards the beginners, right? If it were something that would benefit intermediate and advanced players, it would be much better for us. So that was what we were designing it towards, was something that everyone can enjoy in different ways. But maybe they want to try out someone else, and rather than watching YouTube videos or going into the move list and spend a lot of time, they can just jump right in and turn that on, and then check out the character, and then once they get a feel for it, within the match, still they can turn it off and go to the traditional input method if they want. And even maybe more advanced players, there might be an instance where they're playing, and then in a certain moment, like at the end of a combo, they definitely don't want to make any mistakes, and they can turn that on and more, effectively do a certain. Maybe more advanced players, there might be an instance where they're playing, and then in a certain moment, like at the end of a combo, they definitely don't want to make any mistakes. Then maybe more advanced players, there might be an instance where they're playing, and then in a certain moment, like at the end of a combo, they definitely don't want to make any mistakes, and they can turn that on and more, effectively do a certain move.
I like it, though.
So as you can see, it's designed that because it's simultaneous and because of the choice of the moves, that it's something that should benefit all their levels of players.
One of the big things about Tekken 7 was customization of your characters. Is there going to be a similar system in Tekken 8 where you can dress up your character as much as you want with the items that you get unlocked?
とにかくそうですね。カスタマイズは今後もっと。
So yeah, very interesting question that unfortunately we can't deep dive into at the moment. What we can say is, Tekken has always been known for, even within fighting games, being very a lot of freedom that the players have in customizing the look of their characters. It's not just the skin, right? It's like you can change all these different parts in so many different ways. And that was the case for Tekken 7. So obviously we'd want to do even more for Tekken 8.
It's a no-brainer.
Is all we
when
can
they
say.
do it.
When the time comes, there's so much stuff we'd love to talk about on that.
They
But
just
for the
don't
time
wanna
being, that's all we can say.
go into
So
it.
with regards to the story of Tekken 8, I'm not going to ask you, is this going to be the end of the Mishima arc? But I am going to ask you, you've been thinking about this story for, decades at this point. Have you thought about the end of the story? Like, is that something that you're actively thinking about? Can you even see an end for the story?
それはもともとあって、もうそれで言う
So
と、
Harada was just mentioning that he actually had that kind of overall story arc and the ending plotted out in his head. But that was scheduled to finish 15 years ago. And as you're, creating the game and going along, you get different
really way
interesting
better,
ideas that you put in that kind of changes it and lengthens it, etc. But at this time in particular for Tekken 8, he said he plotted out a storyline overall for 8 in particular. And then the development staff, they add their own twists and ideas to it. So it's actually quite surprising for even Harada, even though he knows the general story
you really
line.
cannot press
That,
a button.
oh wow,
in
this
Tekken 8.
kind of happens. And so since that's the case for him, he's quite confident that most of the players won't be able to foresee what's going to happen, right? So yeah, and then even for me personally, I'm with the development staff after Harada's given the general order. And because everyone's worked on the game so much and they're all Tekken fans as well, it's like, hey, if it's this character, this is what the community expects, and they would love if we do this, or on the other hand, they're going to expect this, so let's go this way. And so it is one of the more fun parts of the development is the story and what we want to do with the story arcs.
I dare you. Martial law.
So I noticed that in the trailers, you have veteran.
Choice.
Can you talk a little bit about being able to use Unreal Engine 5 as it pertains to Tekken 8? What kind of advancements has it
graphics.
allowed for in the actual combat?
Okay,
And do you see the Unreal Engine 5 being like, a way for fighting games to evolve in the future?
難しいとこですね。実は
It's a very interesting question. We could say that for Tekken 7, even we use UE4 first, right? Even then, the engine itself was more probably geared towards shooters or games with wide open stages, and so fighting games required a whole lot of different
detail
things.
in the background.
And
I'm just
so,
not realizing they put a lot of detail.
the visual aspect of it was pretty much paired with, was for using UE4. But the actual underlying mechanics that actually made the game run was usually scripting and stuff that we did on our side, and then heavily kind of customizing it to make it fit what we need. The same could be said for UE5, that it's really easy to get that high level of graphics that people expect from this current generation of, they were called next gen, but now they're the current generation of consoles, right? UE5 is really good at letting you do that quickly and to get the look and the feel of a game. But that said, we're still doing most of the scripting and moving, the actual action of the game, and all of those elements are done on our programming and scripting side. So part of the challenge is to take those pretty graphics and kind of marry them with the underlying framework of the game. And so it's hard to say that fighting games will change in such a certain manner because of UE5, because it's more of a shooter-based game, or based engine, which we're actually heavily customizing. And it seems like Guilty Gear is probably doing even the same thing on theirs. Not the same as us, but same in that you're taking an engine that's built for probably another genre and kind of bending it to make it fit the one you want to use it for.
Well, that is unfortunately all the time we have. Thank you guys both so much for your time and for the info. And for more Tekken 8, keep it right here on IGN.
I'm extremely hyped. We're gonna watch this hand.
Growing up as a child of 90s and early 2000s arcades, I've been a casual enjoyer of the Tekken series pretty much all throughout its lifespan, with its cabinets being a regular spot where I would dump a few quarters, mash some buttons, and walk away with a smile on my face. I've put some time into just about all of them, but never really attempted to learn the deeper complexities of its mechanics, or really sat down to try and become good with a character. That's going to change with Tekken 8 because after spending about 4 hours with it, I'm all in. While I am a self-admitted casual fan of the Tekken series, I have at least dabbled enough into Tekken 7 to be able to talk about the most defining differences between it and Tekken 8. Chief among those changes is the new heat system, which is all about enforcing one of Tekken 8's biggest design goals, rewarding aggression. With the press of a button, a character can use a heat burst to enter heat mode. The effects of it differ from character to character, but in general, you can view it as a limited time state where you're basically better at everything. Certain moves have new properties, others recover faster, making them more advantageous on block, and you gain access to new moves that aren't available outside of heat mode. One of the key elements of heat mode is that while it is time limited, with a meter that slowly depletes once activated, you can actually stop that meter from going down by landing attacks. This is just one of the ways that Tekken 8 looks to encourage its players to be more aggressive. Because if you're able to push the pace and land hits while in heat mode, you can keep that state going throughout most, if not all of the round. And if you decide that you instead want to cash out on damage rather than remain in heat mode, you can use a Heat Smash, which is like a mini Rage Art super move that does a large amount of damage but spends the rest of your heat meter.
You're like, that is crazy.
The heat system goes deeper than that too. In addition to there being a heat meter, there are also these little icons that govern your usage of certain actions while in heat mode. This is called heat energy, and if you enter heat mode with a heat burst, you'll only get one stock of it. However, if you use what's known as a heat engager, you'll enter heat mode with 2 stocks. These are special moves that, when landed, will instantly put your character into the heat state.
Fire.
Every character has 5 of them, and they're usually a handful of the most defining moves of each character. After you land a heat engager, you can spend 1 stock of heat energy to use a heat dash, which lets you quickly dash in to either connect combos that otherwise could not be connected, or if the heat engager is blocked, you can just get right back up in their face to continue your offense. So let's pause and slow things down as we look at this example between Paul and Jack 8. Paul lands his Phoenix Smasher, which is one of his 5 heat engager special moves. Landing a heat engager gives him a free dash that he can use to get in close, but I actually don't think that this is a true combo. Nonetheless, he lands that cool launcher into throw combo from the trailer. Then he lands another Phoenix Smasher, and when you land a heat engager during heat mode, you're able to use a heat dash to continue the combo. So he spends a stock of heat energy on a heat dash, picks him up off the ground, and finishes with a heat smash. Note that Paul now no longer has any heat meter to work with for the rest of the round. My favorite element of the heat system, though, is how it's used to further define the unique aspects of every character. Each character has at least one completely unique advantage while in heat mode. For example, while in heat mode, King gets armor on his Jaguar run, making him a grappler with an armored command run to get in on opponents. Kazuya, meanwhile, can execute his iconic electric Wind God Fist technique without having to be frame perfect on the input. What I also love about the heat system is that it's available right at the start of every round. It's not a comeback mechanic, and you don't need to build up a meter in order to gain access to it. You're free to use it whenever and however you please. The already existing comeback mechanic from Tekken 7, Rage, does make a return, with it once again causing a character to go into a rage state once they reach a critical level of health. While in the rage state, your damage increases and you gain access to your ultra-powerful Rage Art technique. That said, rage drives are a thing of the past, largely because it's a mechanic that felt redundant due to the addition of the heat state and the advantages it provides. Another brand new element of Tekken 8 is the addition of a special control type, which is Tekken 8's new attempt at making its complex fighting system a little more approachable for newcomers. When in special control mode, each button has a recommended move and combo for each character. There's a button for juggle combos, a button for grounded combos, and a button for quick low attacks. The selected moves even change depending on what state you're in. While this allows new players to compete with more intermediate players in terms of the damage they're able to output, the key thing to keep in mind is that players using the special control scheme only have access to a very grounded combos and a button for quick low attacks. The selected moves even change depending on what state you're in. While this allows new players to compete with more intermediate players in terms of the damage they're able to output, the key thing to keep in mind is that players using the special control scheme only have access to a very small selection of moves. The most interesting part, though, about the special control scheme, and the thing that really sets it apart from Street Fighter VI's new modern control scheme, is the fact that you can switch between the classic and special control styles mid-match with the press of a button. This makes it actually a fairly viable option for more experienced players as well, as you could be playing the match out in the classic control scheme, suddenly have an opportunity for a big punish, quickly swap to the special control style, and start mashing out a combo without fear of it dropping. It also seems like a great learning tool to be able to quickly jump in with a new character and get a feel for what their moves and combos are going to look like without having to memorize a whole bunch of techniques just to be competitive. Those are all pretty substantial changes, so it's comforting to know that everything else still feels like some good-ass Tekken. In my playtime, I mostly experimented with King, who's just as much of a powerhouse as he's always been. One of my favorite changes to him is that his reverse arm slam combo has been simplified, allowing him to go into the next throw in the chain with a single button press as opposed to a series of inputs that need to be memorized. Now, he still does have the ladder, and those are probably more damaging and hard. Who's just as much of a powerhouse as he's always been. One of my favorite changes to him is that his reverse arm slam combo has been simplified, allowing him to go into the next throw in the chain with a single button press as opposed to a series of inputs that need to be memorized. Now, he still does have the ladder, and those are probably more damaging and harder to break, but as someone who's always loved King, but was always intimidated by all of the commands needed to do a full chain grab combo, I appreciate having at least one that I could easily commit to memory and rely on pretty much from the get-go of learning the character. I want to give a shout out to Tekken 8's command list too, which does a great job of giving extra context to the recommended moves for every character. It told me recommended combos, moves to use that are advantageous on block, what moves will launch an opponent, what to do after launching them, what to do after activating heat mode, and much more. These move lists are extremely intimidating, with each of them containing hundreds of techniques, and Bandai Namco is really putting in the effort.
Wait, let me rewind.
Just on block, what moves will launch an opponent, recommended combos, moves to use that are advantageous on block, what moves will launch an opponent, what to do after launching them, what to do after activating heat mode, and much more. These move lists are extremely intimidating, with each of them containing hundreds of techniques, and Bandai Namco is really putting in the effort by making them much more user-friendly. After my playtime was over, I left with a renewed enthusiasm to get into Tekken on a more serious level. Tekken 8 looks phenomenal. Its hits feel as impactful as ever, and its iconic cast of characters are even more uniquely defined thanks to the new heat system. There's still a lot we have yet to see, but as far as first impressions go, Tekken 8 is a knockout. For more Tekken 8, make sure to check out my interview with Michael Murray and Katsuhiro Harada. And for everything else, keep it here on IGN.
Bro, let me know if y'all is hyped for Tekken 8 like I am. Don't forget to like a video, comment, and subscribe. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.